I'll do immediately is move out of books and laws and just delve into what I'm trying to say today about two truths and an illusion. And let me start with a story. There are no names here of people or of places, but all of what I'm going to talk about has happened. It is real. We're sitting, imagine we're sitting in a village in the central Indian state of Chhattisgarh, not very far from Jharkhand, Ranchi, where this event is being hosted. If you want to imagine the place, imagine Jungle Book, that's the kind of environment we're sitting in. The fragrant cooked rice has just been served. Some more is actually being packed for us to take home. And then, as we're sitting on the ground, the earth beneath us shook. Was it an earthquake? Didn't look like it. We all looked at each other. And when she spoke, it's routine blasting at the coal mine. You can see it across our cattle shed. Unfortunately, she said, they did not listen to us before taking away our land to start the coal mine. We had said no, passed resolutions in our village assembly, objected at the Jansunbai public hearing, but they took it away. We now hear that it's coming closer. The mine is coming closer. The elephants are lost and the birds are few and far between. I talk about the first truth. Upholding legal and constitutional rights are essential for democratic governance, especially when we imagine a zero carbon world. Because carbon footprint is real. It means real things for real people. I leave everybody with just that thought of the first truth. And let's continue with the story. The blasting persisted through our lunch. We were off to another village where recently, because of heavy rainfall and mismanagement, there was a breach in an ash dike of a power plant. And all the gushing water was straight into the agricultural fields, growing rice, some of which we would have eaten if the rice crop had been successful, and the village common lands, including homes. But this was not the first time this had happened. In fact, when we spoke, people had lost count of how many times this had happened. This brings me to the second truth. The second truth, which says regulatory failure, legal and regulatory failure, abets environmental injustice. So many of you must have heard about environment impact assessments, cost-benefit analysis. These are all big words in big law books. In reality, in many places, what happens is there is poor data. There are misleading assessments. And there is after the fact scrutiny. After something is already set up, there is a post-facto scrutiny that leads to, if you don't disclose what's going to be the impact, you're not going to actually list the safeguards that need to be followed by any project or anybody who's starting operations anywhere. And this is especially important as for the topic that we're talking about today, for carbon intensive projects. In some cases, the few safeguards, environmental safeguards that are available are unfortunately not followed. They're not monitored. In fact, studies point out that although approval rates are close to 100%, or rather, on the one hand, approval rates are close to 100% of highly carbon intensive and other projects that come up for environmental scrutiny. Studies have also indicated that the non-compliance with environmental state safeguards is also upwards of 90%, which means we have many more instances of the ash dike breaches, and the result is serious injustice, falling heavily on the most vulnerable and the most marginalized, whether it's urban areas or in rural areas. But the reality also is that this is economic loss to business. And that is why the second truth becomes very, very critical. Just in this COVID pandemic period in India, you would have heard about many examples of oil fires, gas leaks, boiler bursts, toxic pipelines, breaches, all of it in 6-7 months we've been hearing about. This is the reality that we have to really deal with in the second truth that I'm talking about. Let's keep that where we have right now. And let's head back to Chhattisgarh. We'd moved place, and I'll just tell you something that we were reading in a document. We were sitting all together and we were reading in a document. We'll plant twice the number of trees that will be cut. If 100,000 are cut, 200,000 will grow. This will ensure that the loss is more than compensated, said the official papers justifying the coal mine expansion. The project proponents or Project Walas had already bought agricultural land 200 kilometers away from this proposed site that we are talking about to do the plantations. And that's what brings me to the illusion. The illusion that we all live with, that policy lives with, is nature is a limitless resource, and damage in large quantity can be compensated. The loss in one place can be offset in another, 200 kilometers away, 300 kilometers away, across the globe. Now, why do I call this an illusion? And I'll just delve a little deeper into it. Research indicates that highest courts of countries like India and audit institutions of India have clearly recorded shortfalls in offset mechanisms like compensatory afforestation of the kind I was talking to you about in that official document. And this has been happening since the 1980s. Ecologists worldwide have concluded that carbon offset mechanisms actually are not really working in places for one reason or the other. There is a whole bunch of reasons if anybody wants to understand it. But as I said, there are real footprints for real people. There is also a social footprint of these offset mechanisms and compensatory mechanisms. The sites where offsets are administered have existing prevailing rights and bona fide uses that land up getting compromised if you start planting trees on a floodplain of a river. So these realities have to be very much kept in mind while thinking of this illusion. The reason I laid this down through the story for everyone and for myself is these two truths and one illusion can inform how our way to zero carbon futures can be carved out. And I'll just talk to you about very short, 3 non-negotiables, according to me, of course. 1, decisions need to be democratic, participatory, and driven by ascertaining prior informed consent. Remember the first truth I spoke about and the first part of the story I spoke about. 2, precaution rather than postponement of impacts or post facto fixing of outfalls of poor decisions that you see in trying to manage waste sites or fly ash dumps and so many other examples that we can come to and discuss if we are together in a room sometime, or can be shared online as well. That is becoming normal. The precaution is no longer normal. Postponement of impacts, post facto fixing of outfalls is becoming the norm. It's becoming part of law and policy. That's, remember, the second truth. And 3, I draw from the illusion. The non-negotiable is that offsets cannot justify large-scale destruction of ecologies and livelihoods. So the road to zero carbon futures needs to be reflexive. We need to learn from all that I've spoken about and much more that we've heard today, and be paved through 1, social legitimacy. Whatever we do needs to be socially legitimate, acceptable. Environmental stability. It needs to be long-term. And think of environment upfront. And 3, this cannot be out of the picture at all. Economic rethinking. And I'll just end there. Thank you.